This is where somebody comes into an argument and says, well, any reasonable person would.
Right, exactly. You know, it's ironic, but it's often the first years of marriage that are the hardest, with, especially if you have kids early on and busy with jobs and mortgage payments and all of those things. Life gets in the way of the relationship. What can people do to start a marriage with a strong foundation and make those the happy years?
Well, I have a workshop that I do, and the first thing that I talk about in the workshop is the stages in a relationship, because I want to walk couples through the stages to normalize the process. Because in the beginning, everything is all, fairy dust and rose petals, it's all good, right? And that's a necessary part of the process, because that's where that initial bonding comes in. You need that for the long haul. But then it's a natural progression to progress into the power struggle stage. That's when you start, noticing things that you don't like about the other person, and the anger starts to come up, But couples often are blindsided by this stage, They're like, oh my God, we're fighting. I guess we're not right for each other. Maybe we should get divorced, or we're gonna have to white knuckle it for 30 or 40 years. But I think that this is the beginning of an authentic relationship, because now the rose-colored glasses are coming off and you get to have a real relationship. But what I encourage couples to do is to evolve into the next phase, which is the conscious love stage. And that's where, you're consciously and intentionally creating the kind of marriage you desire together. And I call it the make it happen stage. You make a decision. You make a decision to love, and you make a decision to see your relationship as a healing journey.
People typically aren't prepared for the work that it takes for a relationship.
Amen to
They
that.
expect first year it's going to be wonderful. You're merging your lives together.
Yeah, they're surprised, right? I mean, imagine that expectations not being met is probably, even furthers the sense of frustration.
Right.
They expect it to be fairy dust and rose petals.
Right.
This is where somebody comes into an argument and says, well, any reasonable person would.
Right, exactly. Oh, those are such helpful ways to, communicate.
And this is why when couples go to the courthouse to get their marriage license, they should get something that goes hazardous to your health.
Right, forget cigarettes.
Or some sign that says, you are gonna have problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Every couple has them, and actually, Harville and I believe that that the whole policy in our country should change. That when you apply for a marriage license, it should be like applying for a driver's license.
At least.
You should have to take a course, read a book, and pass a test. And if you don't show proficiency, you do not get your license. And about a month ago, I said, Harville, maybe there should be a 5-year renewal.
That's a great idea.
And you
think you're
answer
onto
the
something,
questions,
Helen.
and then you get an extension for them.
But don't you think that it's about creating habits, healthy habits? Like, I always tell couples, you have to practice what you want and not what you don't want, so that what you want becomes the new normal.
The habit, yeah. Well, and that's, I feel like I read something, Harville, that you wrote a number of years ago about neuroplasticity, and the brain can change. And not only can it change, but in a relationship, in a marriage particularly, it needs to change. And you can, by being mindful and by practicing and being intentional, you can make that brain do all sorts of wonderful, healthy, loving things.
And this is another piece of information I'm going back to the culture. It's not in our culture.
Right.
That is, there's no information available like you have to get a driver's license to drive a car. There's no information available in the culture that says what Helen just said. Your feelings are going to change in this relationship.
Well, in fact, I would add that it's it's like countercultural, because when you look at Disney and the rom-coms, it's counter.
Right.
It's like what you're saying is totally counterculture, because everything else is, you just live happily ever after.
And people get disillusioned, thinking, what's wrong? I've married the wrong person.
We haven't been able to gallop off into the sunset yet. What happens to that part of my own movie?
And Harville and I believe this needs a revolution.
Oh, yes. Okay.
We need a relationship revolution.
Yes.
That we have to get the message out.
Yes.
That there are going to be challenges, and there is something you can do about them, and arm people with the relationship.
Well, and you guys are doing this. whether it's early on in a marriage or 30, 40 years in, it doesn't matter. All marriages can become powerful, positive, transformed marriages, right? I mean, in what you guys have looked at,
And changing. Think about the snake that loses its skin and has a new one. That here's a marriage or a relationship that's going to be changing before children, after children, when the children go off.
And see, that's not taught either. A marriage is a static. It's like you're in a box and things are going to stay there. And it's not like something that flows with each new intervention.
So this has been a great conversation, especially for those of you who are getting married or in the earlier phases of a relationship, in a marriage rather. Know that those are often the hardest times, and you know that if you're experiencing conflict at any stage, that's a really powerful opportunity to grow closer. And so take heart. It's a way to know I'm on the right track and I'm with the right person.